Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Steltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last year or so, I have been featuring each Fille du Roi or King's Daughters and getting to know their stories a little bit better. There are over 700 of them. We are today on episode 156. We've come a long way, got a long way to go. But before we begin, let me let you know how you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know. Subscribe, like, notify. All this helps me out so much. The next three are more long-term financial support, and they can be found with the links that I have. We have coffee, which is one-time contribution, and then we have my Etsy shop, which you can purchase a digital download of your particular Fille du Roi. And then we also have Patreon if you want to become a regular monthly subscribers. And I want to thank our monthly subscribers thus far. We really appreciate your support. So let's get started and find out our episode number 156. So episode 156 is a Fille du Roi named Louise Bouchard. And she's a viewer request. I do not have her in my files. She's also one of my viewers who is the most enthusiastic, and I really appreciate all her her emails and all of that she does. It really warms my heart. So I was happy to do this for her. Let's get to know Louise a little bit better. So Louise was born in 1647 in a commune called Neufchâtel, Ardelot, which is found in the Hauts-de-France region, and you can see on the top left. So it's really north. And then we have the region, or département as we call it, Pas-de-Calais. So it's kind of contained within there. It's pretty northern. And this is the church that she would have been baptized in. Her parents were named Laurent Bouchard and Nicole Bougon. The church that she was baptized in would have existed around the 13th or 14th century. And just so you know, Neufchâtel means actually, it's kind of a derivative of Newcastle. Okay, so at one point there were quite a number of castles in this area. Right now it is a very picturesque, very tourist-oriented place. Small, but still very, very much historical based. So what makes Louise interesting, among many reasons, but Louise left for New France after the death of her parents. And she arrived in Quebec on September 25th, 1667. Her brother, Guillaume, was already in New France, having arrived in 1663. And so I just think that's neat that, it's often the case that the girls would come and not have any relatives. At least she had her brother nearby. So I really like that connection that they had. And in fact, in some of the census that I saw, they were living not next door to each other, very, very close. So who did Louise choose to marry? So the groom that she selected and who selected her, his name was Simon Guillery, and he was born in 1646 in Château de Blois, which is now known as Chartres-sur-Cher. Sur in French means on, so usually it's near a river when it's sur. And his parents were François Guillery and Anne Gaillou. Now you can see on the left hand, Centre Val de Loire, that's the region that he's from. And inside, Loire-et-Cher is the département, or the county. This is a picture of the present day village, if you will. And then we have another aerial view of it, just very, just like many communities here in North America. And the Église Saint-Martin would have been the church that he would have been baptized in. He was actually an armorer and a master gunsmith. So he brought with him tools to really make his mark, so to speak, in New France. Let's see his journey. So Simon would come to New France. He was listed in both the 1666 census, which is the bigger one, and the 1667 census. Again, I remind you, the reason they took two is because they didn't get everybody the first go around, so they had to go back and take some more. So here we have Simon. He's actually 20 in both of those, so they guessed at the ages. And it actually says what he was doing in as a gunsmith, as a metal maker, iron worker, and he was living in the home of Charlemagne. What's interesting, I just want to point out that in the top census from 1667, we have a girl named Catherine Moitié, and those of you who are related to Catherine Moitié will note that Simon lived in the same household as our fille du roi, Catherine Moitié, who I believe was number 66, 67. And so that's kind of neat to see them, the interconnecting of stories, sort of thing. So he's in New France doing his thing, and he is waiting for his bride to arrive. On December 6th, 1667, they did just that. They were married in Montreal. And let's see where they began their life. So Simon and Louise would establish themselves in Montreal. Let's talk a little bit about Montreal. It was, of course, Ville-Marie for many, many years. It was founded by Paul de Chomedy, Sœur de Maisonneuve, and was essentially a missionary center. The colony did not thrive at the very beginning, and by 1653, he needed people. And so he went back to France and recruited among 100 settlers, but he also recruited an amazing woman named Marguerite Bourgeois, who established the Congregation de Notre-Dame, and really was the beginning of Montreal as a settlement, if you will. And still, in Three Rivers, Trois-Rivières, and Quebec City, they kind of laughed, like, who would live on an island, right? Meanwhile, the island became the reason why they were so successful. So now we can see Simon Bussier, which means gunsmith, 35 years old. Louise Bouchard, sa femme, 34 years old. Their children, Simon, Jeanne, François, another Simon. Remember how often they do this, right? Marie, 6 months. Nicolas, who is a domestic. Okay, so they have someone working for them. They have 2 guns, 2 goats, and 17 about 14 to 15 acres of land. So that's not too shabby. So they would go on to have 9 children. Guillaume Simon would go on to marry Marie Alie and have 3 children, 2 of whom made it to adulthood. Marie would pass away in infancy. Jeanne Françoise would marry Jacques Gaudry and have 4 children, only 1 of whom made it before her early death at 26. François would marry Jeanne Montfort and have 1 child, and that would survive. And they left for the American South, and both of them died in Alabama. Isn't this interesting? So please let me know if any of you have that descendancy, because that would be amazing. Simon, the second Simon, would die tragically at 20 years of age in a drowning accident. Marie-Anne would die in infancy. Anne and Marie-Madeleine were twins, and Anne would die in infancy, but Marie-Madeleine would survive and marry, but passed away before having any descendants. Louise would marry Jean-Baptiste Massiot and have 2 children, and who would both survive. And then she married Joseph Coulibier and had 8 children, 4 of whom made it to adulthood. Simon would pass away early in 1698 at the even then, young age of 52. He and Louise would have been married about 30 years, though. Despite the fact that, he died so young, they were married for a very long time. Louise herself would die a few years later at the age, very young, of 56. That is her death record. She would die August 31st, 1703. Now, they would go on in 1729 to have 41 descendants, which is not a lot, but enough to make sure that my viewer can trace her lineage back to this very special couple. And here we have some of the resources I use, La Société des Filles du Roi, of which I am actually the membership chair. I've been a member for several years. And really you have to prove your lineage in order to become a full member. You can be an associate member without doing all that paperwork. And you just don't get the certificate. And so I would encourage you to check it out. And even if you don't become a member, they have excellent resources on that site. We have the Quebec Genealogical E-Society, which is a yearly subscription. And wonderful webinars that they do, really good stuff. Then we have Nos Origines, which is a free website. We have Généalogie Québec, which is a monthly subscription, which I dearly love and pay wonderfully. I would not be able to do what I do without this website. And then we have Migration, which is a free website, but I also donate to them just to make sure that they have all the means that they can to continue on their fabulous research. And then we have the Facebook group, which of course is free, and it's on Filles du Roi Descendants. You ask to join and they accept you. So it's something where you need to prove that you, or not prove, but you have to say who you're related to, that sort of thing. So absolutely check that out. That will definitely help you out in your research. And so we end our analysis of Louise Bouchard and her husband, Simon. And, you know, the fact of the matter is they did not live a long, long life, but in terms of the history of Montreal, in terms of the history of that particular area, and the fact that they were there and were able to produce children, and the fact he was a gunsmith, he would have had a lot of interaction with other people. So I suspect their influence is much more than just they produced 41 descendants by 1729. So, I think that they were a couple that definitely had quite a bit to offer for New France, and as many of the Filles du Roi. So we bless her memory, and we're sad that she died so young, and that he died as well so young. But they made an impact, and for that we thank them, we salute them, and we bless their memory. Until I see you on episode 157, au revoir.